Over a third of the residents of Copenhagen ride their bike to work every single day, and that's one reason why Copenhagen's gained a reputation as one of the world's greenest cities. But can the Copenhagen way of doing things be used in other countries? We're going to go for a walk to try and find out. Hi, Jeffrey.
Hey, how are you?
Good. American architect Jeffrey Heller is a leader in the sustainable architecture movement internationally, and his firm, Heller Manus Architects, is currently working on a number of large-scale urban planning projects, particularly in China. Among other things, Heller is a fellow of the American Institute of Architects and a council member of Green Growth Leaders. So here we are in Copenhagen. What are some of the things you see about this city that make it green?
Well, you know, Copenhagen's a great model, and it's. I think the main thing is that it's people-friendly and it's also people-focused. And one of the great problems in places like China is it's automobile-focused. And what we're trying to do is shift it to the people-focused model like this. And you know, my hometown is San Francisco, and San Francisco is very much like Copenhagen in what it wants and where it's trying to get to in livability terms. And so for me, it's a very comfortable model to use Copenhagen like I use San Francisco and places like that when I go to China.
But there's a lot of things that are going on in Copenhagen that simply won't work in San Francisco. For instance, this guy, which weighs about 300 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
I can't go up the hills in San Francisco on this.
Well, they have lighter bikes. But San Francisco has become more and more a bike city. It's got very high bike usage. It's a transit-first city, so the car dominance is being pushed down. And I've actually carried that to China. And when I talk to the people in China, you know, the mayors and the party secretaries and all, I simply tell them that you're never going to solve the automobile problem. Because not only do they already have congestion, but they're selling more cars than anywhere else in the world, and they can't build roads fast enough, and even if they do, it doesn't do anything to solve the problem.
San Francisco, though, is a relatively European-American city. What about a city like Jacksonville, Florida, which is enormous land-wise? Bicycles don't work. There are other challenges.
Sure. I mean, there's a multitude of things. Some cities in China have even banned the bicycle, whereas the bicycle used to be the dominant culture. So there are some city centers where they have banned the bicycle to make way for the automobile. And you know what's happening now? They're reversing themselves. They're going back to alternative modes of transportation. So public transportation, other alternative modes like bicycles are coming back because they watch the world. The Chinese go out into the world all the time, and they interact with people like me. And so things are beginning to reverse themselves. And frankly, you know, each area geographically is very different. So Guangzhou is hot, and Beijing is cold in the winter, hot in the summer. And so they have all the same climatological issues that a place like this does. So each one will have its own specific way of approaching it. But the core idea of getting out of the car and into some other means of getting around is really advancing quickly.
So that's the bicycle, but there must be some other things that make a city more people-friendly, as you talk about. What are those things?
Yeah. Actually, the main thing that we try to do when we go to China and we plan these cities is livability. It's the total fabric of how you exist in a city and make life worth living. Like over here, you know, you have a pedestrian mall, quite great. You know, you have parks mixed in with the buildings. You have plazas, and they have the same, but they don't have that kind of connectivity that these cities do. That they bring it down to the human scale. And remember, these are enormous cities, both the existing cities and the new cities. So the art of bringing down to the Copenhagen scale, feeling that fine texture of life, and make it so you can sit on a bench and be comfortable and all of that. That's really what they are hungering for now, and that's what we're doing.
But when we talk about exactly scale, I mean, Denmark's relatively privileged. It's a flat country. There's not many people here. Ethnically, religiously, people are relatively similar. There's lots of water. all these things really make it easy
Yeah,
to do some of these things, but that's not always the case in China.
Right. The art of it is adaptation to the place and the scale of the place and the different geographies of various parts of China, and to transmute, if you will, the qualities to ones that work for them.
But
and
what's that magic formula? I mean, how do you make that adaptation? You look at Copenhagen, the way things are here, how do you scale it? How do you make the adaptation?
Well, you look at this boulevard, for example, okay? We're walking down a sidewalk. It's got, it's got a green space from the roadway with benches, a walking area. It's got a bicycle lane outside. And in fact, all of those things can be translated. You can design the boulevards and the streets to be more people-friendly. For example, Beijing, the capital city, they're very proud of Beijing, but they also know it's not a walkable city. You can only get around by metro or car. You cannot walk great distances. And so now they're looking at how do we do this, okay? And that means that we look at examples like Copenhagen, and so do they, and we say, how does this translate or scale to what we're doing? And it can be done. And we're doing it, for example, in Guangzhou and in Shanghai, where the whole business of feeding nature and the urban life together is part of the process of making the city more livable for them.
Should we sit down and talk a little bit more?
Sure.
Let's talk a little bit about the difference between new cities and old cities.
Yeah.
The Copenhagen model.
Yeah.
Can this work in new cities and old cities? Are there different challenges there?
The main thing that Copenhagen brings to the table is a focus on urban quality, visual quality, cultural quality, public amenities. And the older Chinese cities have that in the inner cities. And by seeing the way it's cared for and nurtured and dealt with here, and other old cities in Europe and in America, they want to do that, okay? And then you get in the new areas of the cities, or brand new cities, you have to take the principles of what's the quality of these places and create that in new designs. And what's happened is China has grown dramatically since the 80s. And China has spent 2-3 decades in the growth model catching up with the West. And now they get to a point where they're dissatisfied with the result, because it's all been about grow and nothing about quality. And they look around and they go, we want the quality. They're smart, worldly people. And so the great thing, and I think the reason why we're successful and so busy in China, is because they are now focused on, sustainable, livable cities.
So now China is looking to cities like Denmark, cities like Copenhagen, countries like Denmark, to help them learn how to create livable cities.
Yes.
Whereas before it was all about growth.
That's right. And it's complete change. And I've been told this by, the mayors and high leaders of the cities. And it's policy. And one of the interesting things is, as they gain wealth, they travel, just like all the rest of us, around the world. And they see all these things. They come to Denmark, they come to Italy, they come to France, and they want to have that experience in their lives. And not to copy it, but they don't want these endless, bland, featureless new cities which have been built over the last few decades. They want to bring back the ability to walk in their city and go to a park and get to work and have it all enrich their lives and have the cultural overlays as well.
What about sustainability? Is that an issue?
It is not only an issue now, but it is a mandate. What's interesting is that in this time of year, fall, Beijing starts to get the effects from Mongolia of the coal dust and the pollution and the sandstorm dust, and it hits a fog layer, and kind of like what you were saying about the fog that comes in here, and it creates an almost untenable environment, and that's where the central government is. So they're not blind and they're not oblivious. They see what's happening to their environment, and they say, we know we have to change. And it is now national policy. There is what is called the 12th five-year plan of China, and sustainability is the major centerpiece of that plan. And they mean it, okay? So they are actually more committed than the United States on a national central policy to sustainability, which Denmark is. And so they can look at the model of Copenhagen in Denmark and say, this is the kind of thing that we are now striving for.
So this model, it can work in China?
Yes, it gets transformed, but they definitely consciously look to this place. In fact, my being on this Green Growth Council is wonderfully timely and a great opportunity, because this transmission of information and communication of ideas is exactly what they're about right now. They're reaching out all over the world.
Jeffrey, thanks for the talk.
You bet. Great. Time for a beer.
Time for a beer.